Moonlight, Nick Fury, calling you about the Avenger Initiative.
I told you to beg. Fucking beg me for it.
Please join the Avengers?
Oh, right.
Okay, good. With Iron Man dead, Captain America an old man.
Don't be an asshole.
Oh, sorry. Well, we do have a lot of perks. We got pizza parties on Fridays.
There's pizza.
Hello, Moon Knight fans. Thanks so much for clicking on this video. My name is Chris. Moon Knight has gotten off to a great start. It seems like everyone really loved episode 1. And now with episode 2 finally released, it seems like people are just eager to find out more about what's going on. They're even starting to release Funko Pops. Can't wait to get my hands on those. But like with any Marvel series, as the show continues on, of course there will be things fans will complain about, and there are definitely controversies with Mr. Knight. So what I'm going to do here for you guys is giving you my spoiler review on Moon Knight episode 2. I'll be pointing out some of the Easter eggs here and there you might have missed, but really my overall reaction and thoughts and whether it was a good idea to change Mr. Knight. As well as you guys let me know your opinions down below. How did you feel about episode 2 of Moon Knight? What are some of your theories you're picking up on right now? And if you are a diehard Moon Knight fan before this series was a thing, how do you feel about the Mr. Knight change? Alright, so with episode 2 of Moon Knight titled Summon the Suit, we start off with Stephen Grant waking up in his bed wondering if everything that happened the last episode was a dream. We see he even tries to go ahead and conjure up Mark Spector to speak to him, but none of that is working, and then when he arrives at work, he realizes it wasn't a dream and that something definitely went down. Steven asks his co-worker if he can see the security cam footage, warning him,
I must warn you, what you're about to see is gonna melt your brain, yeah?
I'm gonna teach you to behave.
Stop it, you're hurting me!
And right here is where some of the theories are starting to pick up with Moon Knight, because so far with the 2 episodes, we are only given 2 out of the 3 personalities that Moon Knight had. Even though Mark Spector has usually been the main character all throughout the comic books, the show for some reason continues to have Stephen Grant as the main personality, where we're seeing a lot of stuff just through his eyes. Even though again, in the comics, it all started with Mark Spector as this military man, did a mission in Egypt, ended up dying, but Khonshu spared his life as long as he agreed to be his vessel of Moon Knight. Then we had Stephen Grant, who was the suave playboy millionaire that funded all of Moon Knight's tech. Us already seeing the huge changes that the show has made to Stephen Grant's persona, not making him rich, but instead a smart, kind, shy, awkward soul. Moon Knight fans are left wondering, are they gonna bring in Jake Lockley, who in the comics was usually a cab driver that spent a lot of his time just going in and out of rough neighborhoods, really street level stuff, getting as much information about his surroundings to then feed back to his other personalities. In the first episode, fans now think that we did get a hint at the Jake Lockley persona with the person who asked out the co-worker of Steven on a date to the steakhouse. We all thought that maybe it was Mark trying to do Steven a favor to get him a nice date since he's married, as we found out in this episode, but that still feels like kind of a weird thing to do as someone who was married to then flirt with another individual. That seems like something scummy to do, and it feels like our first hint to Jake Lockley, and now here on the security cam footage, I think we are staring at the Jake Lockley persona. It could very well be Mark Spector, as we know he's just the one that defeated and beat up the Jackal. But I don't know, something about these eyes just come off very evilish, mad, and angry, and I feel like that'll be the distinctive quality that the Jake Lockley persona has as opposed to the other two. Is in the Disney Plus series, they'll make Jake Lockley almost like the evil side of Moon Knight. But as we move forward in the episode, we see that nothing was captured on the security cameras, only making Steven look very guilty to his workplace, having him be fired. Leading us into another interaction between Steven and Crawley, who we now know is confirmed this is the character from the comics and it's not a coincidence. We'll have to wait and see if he'll play a bigger role in the show or this will just be the extent of his character in the show. From here, Steven decides to do a little more digging on Mark Spector from the information that he has on him, including that key that he found in his apartment in the first episode. This leads him to a storage facility where he's led to his locker and finds loads of military equipment, which makes sense because Mark Spector was a military man. This is also again where we find the scarab that Harrow has been after that we now know is the compass to finding Amit. And it's in this sequence when Steven and Mark are finally having a conversation with each other that some questions are being answered, but it also leaves me just a little confused. For one, it seems like the deal that Mark made with Khonshu was persistent on the fact that his other personalities didn't know he was Moon Knight, which I do think that's just an odd explanation, especially since as far as we know, he's always had these multiple personalities. How has this never come up in his life before until right now? Steven, really not wanting to be part of any of this, decides to grab a bag and run out of the storage facility where he runs into Layla. Now, this is a character that was made up for the series. She isn't really somebody from the comics. But again, it just made me a little more confused finding out that she is the wife of Mark Spector, and this entire time that they've been married, living together, going on adventures, as she puts it, there has never once been a problem where the Stephen Grant or Jake Lockley persona has come out and made things weird. I wonder if the show will maybe touch upon why now all of a sudden the personalities are split between one another. But as things continue on here, we see that Layla just really isn't buying this whole charade that Mark or Steven is putting on for her, thinking that he's just going ahead and doing this to avoid their divorce that they're in the process of. But before Steven or Mark could explain anything more to Layla, we see two police officers come in to investigate Steven. Discovering his bag of goodies and passports with a different name, they decide to take him in. Here inside the car of the police officers, we even get a little hint to when Moon Knight first arrived back in 1975. They also go on to elaborate a little more of his history in the military and his time in Egypt. All stuff I wonder if we're eventually going to see, maybe not in this show, but for the future of the Moon Knight character. But once arriving at their destination, it's found out that these aren't really police officers, but more followers of Harrow, delivering Steven to him to go ahead and find out where the Scarab is. This is where we find out a lot of interesting information about Harrow and why he's doing what he does. One, we find out he was the previous vessel that held the title of Moon Knight and actually worked alongside Khonshu. That's how he knows so much about what's going on with Moon Knight and the voices in his head, not necessarily the multiple personalities, but the fact that Khonshu is in there constantly giving him orders. We also learn his moral and philosophy on life, where he thinks that Khonshu has it wrong, where he punishes people after they've committed sin, where the god he's trying to resurrect, Amit, is someone who punishes someone if they have or will commit a sin in the future. We even get a small reference to Andrew Garfield in here.
Oh, really? Yes.
Thankfully, Stephen Grant, though, isn't on board with the idea of killing children before they've committed any wrongdoings. He decides to reject Harrow's offer of joining him, where then Layla decides to come in and crash the party. As Layla and Stephen are running away from another Jacko that Harrow has summoned, she starts to really believe him more that he is not Mark Spector and is in fact Stephen Grant when he can't summon the suit, putting Stephen in a compromising position that forces him to summon what he assumes the suit to be, giving us the MCU introduction of Mr. Knight. Now here is where some of the controversy is coming from amongst diehard Moon Knight fans. The way the show portrayed Mr. Knight is not at all the way Mr. Knight is usually portrayed in the comics. Now, like I've said before, I was never the biggest Moon Knight fan, but when I heard Marvel was going to make a Disney Plus series, I did my research and started reading up on the character. So leading up to the release of the show, I read a lot of stuff with Moon Knight, and I could definitely feel they went a different direction with Mr. Knight. So I can only imagine how diehard fans felt. In the comics, they don't really explore it this way, where each personality gets their own version of a Moon Knight suit. And the Mr. Knight suit was just something tailor-made. It wasn't something that was necessarily summoned. But probably most importantly of all is Mr. Knight as a character is usually someone that I would say has like a Bruce Wayne persona without the Batman attached. You see the way Christian Bale sometimes acts when he's like in Batman mode, but he's still in his Bruce Wayne suit? That's essentially what Mr. Knight is, okay? He's suave, intelligent, not necessarily just brooding and wanting to pound people, and is basically a badass doing very little joking. Heck, even if you look at the first poster of Mr. Knight, they were trying to trick fans and convince you that they were bringing the Mr. Knight from the comics. When looking at this poster and then seeing what he was like in his first appearance, it's not really the same. And maybe it is just the animated eyes and the shape of the head, but I definitely was getting small Deadpool vibes. So that's why you have a lot of Moon Knight fans kind of upset and going, damn, what was the point of bringing in this character from the comics if you're just gonna switch him up and change him like the MCU has been doing with a lot of their characters? Shang-Chi, very different from the way he is in the comics. Miss Marvel, we're seeing they've changed her up quite a bit from the way she is in the comics. And now Mr. Knight. I mean, he's someone that can easily fight and take down a group of thugs, and this version version of Mr. Knight cannot do that yet. But now, even with all that said, I'm gonna say I welcome the change. I think it's actually a great idea. One, I love the idea that each personality has their own version of a Moon Knight costume. So we know Mark Spector's suit looks like this, and now we know Stephen Grant's costume looks like this. If they bring in Jake Lockley, I wonder what his Moon Knight suit will look like. There's a lot to choose from the comics. There could be the cowboy look, the mental patient look. Gonna be very curious to see what they go with. But also, I feel like it was maybe kind of needed, because Mark Spector's Moon Knight is already this brute that takes down people, has the muscle, and they've already shown that Stephen Grant is the intelligent side. I feel like they're gonna have him grow into the persona where maybe he learns to fight and take care of himself, but at the end of the day, that persona is really for intelligent-based missions. Plus, after hearing this line,
Like a butterfly, sting like a bee. My name's Stephen with a V.
I kind of don't mind that Mr. Knight is the funny persona of Moon Knight. So while I understand people being pissed about it, I have to think that they're gonna make Stephen Grant grow into this persona, become a hero on his own, and although we don't necessarily see him fight or have a lot of physical skills, he'll maybe eventually learn them. But because Steven is very obviously outmatched here, he decides to give control over to Mark Spector, giving us his Moon Knight suit, where of course we just get a great sequence of him knowing he needs to get this jackal away from the people, running as fast as he can where there's no one around, and then eventually just killing this thing. And to end the episode off, we get a couple of great conversations here, one between Mark and Stephen Grant kind of fighting for control over the body, where Mark Spector just kind of loses control and breaks this mirror, but also Khonshu coming down and telling him that they have a mission to do, and if Mark happens to fail at this one, he has an idea for his next vessel, aka Layla, and that's something Mark Spector would not wish upon his worst enemy. Again, I think episode 2 of Moon Knight is really great. Things are really going to start changing come the next episode, and then things go real crazy episode 4. But for now, I'm glad people are really liking it and are rolling with the ball with some of these confusing things. I'm excited to hear from you guys. Let me know your theories down below. How do you feel about the Mr. Knight change? What do you think the costume should look like for Jake Lockley? Anything and everything, be sure to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.